Hello and welcome to Attacking Third, a CBS Sports Soccer podcast. I'm Sandra Herrera, lead NWSL writer for CBS Sports. Joined today, as always, by my colleague and co-host Lisa Roman, NWSL analyst and broadcaster. On today's episode, we have a special interview episode for everyone. But quick, a reminder to follow us on Twitter at Attacking Third. You can also head on over to our YouTube page and hit subscribe to youtube.com/Attacking Third so that you never miss a single thing. We're joined today by Meghann Burke, Executive Director of the NWSL Players Association, and Sydney Miramontez, former NWSL player, just announced retirement from Kansas City Current. Congratulations are in order to you, joining the PA officially as a full-time business agent. Welcome back to Meghann and welcome to the show. Sydney, how are you both doing today?
Thank you. I'm doing well. Excited to be here. Excited to sit next to Meg virtually. But yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me back on, and I am so thrilled to be here with Sid. Thanks for giving her a warm up.
I think. Well, go ahead, Lisa. Take it away.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to have Sydney here because, Meghann, when you shared the news that she was retiring, which congratulations are definitely in order, Sydney, to you. But now joining the PA as a business agent, using your experience and your platform to help players that are still competing. Why did you want to make this move? Why did you want to stay involved with the PA?
Yeah, I think I've been playing soccer for so many years. And actually, I was in a similar position 2 years ago where I did make the decision to step away, retire from soccer. And, that was the best decision for me at the time. But I quickly found that soccer is a part of me. I love this game. And the opportunity to play in this league is so special. And so when I had an opportunity to come back to the league last season, I knew that it was my mission not only to be able to play soccer and enjoy it again, but also set myself up for what's next and really figure out what it is I'm passionate about and what I want to do for a career long term. And so got really involved with the Players Association this year, connected really well with Meghann. She keeps us going. And by the end of the season, I think my focus and my passion had shifted. And I was able to really find, that career move for me, and the timing felt right at the end of the season. So when the opportunity came, I knew I didn't want to say no, and I couldn't. So here we are.
I love that. It almost just sort of feels like the PA is getting stronger a little bit, and you love to see it. You love to hear it. I know the two of you have been very busy in this off season, right? For NWSL, in and out of meetings, negotiations, everything. And Meghann, the last time that we had you on the show, the PA made a little bit of an announcement. There's an emergency fund that got launched recently, and it's the Players National Emergency Trust. Listeners can go to supporttheplayers.net to also continue their support of the players. This was a huge announcement. Meghann, did you want to maybe take a little dive with us and sort of give a little bit of an explainer of how this came to life and what the fund is?
I'm happy to do it. So it's supporters can go to www.supporttheplayers.net, net for National Emergency Trust, but also the domain name. This was an idea that really came to pass out of the No More Side Hustles campaign that we launched. As we really listened to players' stories, we just heard story after story of like, this thing came up and I couldn't afford that emergency. And the examples, you could spend your whole podcast imagining examples, but a few that have come to mind is like a player loses a parent during the course of the season and can't afford that plane ticket back home. A player gets traded and has to get her two little boys on an airplane at the last minute because she's got to ship out and get to the next club within 24 hours. Player who had to move out of her apartment and, it had mold in it. She's got to come up with a security deposit to find a new one or something. Just a few examples. Out-of-pocket copays for mental health treatment became really important this season. And so we'd started this process this summer of looking at launching an emergency and charitable fund, which is something that labor unions do. And when, Mana, Kaya, and Sinead all came out with these stories, it became evident that there's just this kind of wider need for players to remove cost as a barrier to players seeking the help and support they need. I've been connected to Mana, but she actually came to me and said, I'm passionate about this, about removing cost as a barrier to seeking mental health treatment. I really want to figure out how we could fundraise for this. All these people reached out to me about, setting up a GoFundMe or doing this or that. I was like, it's funny you say that because actually we've got this other thing we're doing. And there's really this synergy between the kind of two efforts in coming together. So Mana has really been using her voice to amplify the need to support players and removing costs as a barrier to mental health treatment. So that's really become kind of a focus. And, I think the response, Sid, you can certainly speak to it from the players' perspective, but I feel like that what I'm hearing from players is that this is an awesome thing. We're really glad to see it happening. It's good to know that the union is there for them. We'll always have their backs, and this is going to be a safety net that's there when they need it.
Yeah, Sydney, as a former player and really having your finger on the pulse of what the players are thinking and feeling when this fund was announced, and now that it's active and out there, and fans of the league can support the players directly, does it provide a sense of comfort or stability for players in the league that aren't making enough just based on their contracts with teams?
Absolutely. I mean, I look at the impact that the Players Association continues to be able to have, and I think this is just another element to that. And to see the evolution of the PA and the resources that are starting to come available, and then to be able to provide just that comfort to know that, hey, a bad situation might happen, but I've got people in my corner, and I think that can translate into so many different things to allow players to just feel good, feel confident, and be able to go out and do their jobs to the best of their ability and eliminate some of that worry.
I want to maybe back off of that a little bit. Something that we've been seeing in this off season, adjacent to all of these forms of support that are coming out for the players, and now that includes this emergency fund trust. Something that we've been seeing in the off season with the introduction of San Diego Wave and Angel City, we saw a very active trade window, right? But one of the narratives and storylines that have been coming out of that, in particular with the player acquisitions, is that the conversations that have been taking place ahead of something like an expansion draft, where we saw a lot of teams trading out, right, of an event like that, and sort of hearing, behind the scenes that an event like that in the past has brought a lot of maybe anxiety at times for certain players because of the unknowns that lie ahead, right? With that recent event that just took place, is it, I don't know, perhaps refreshing to sort of know or hear or see that there are a couple of clubs that are introducing themselves to the league in a way in which they are trying to engage more with players, having transparency, having conversations prior to sort of making those moves ahead of an event like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's encouraging to see. I think you're seeing a little bit of a philosophical shift that we're living through in this moment. I think it's a positive thing, and it's encouraging that clubs are wanting to hear what players' preferences are. But we're also amidst a CBA negotiation, and I can assure you that what players want is not permission but power. We want to be able to dictate terms and conditions of employment and decide where we play, and not have to ask for a club's permission to do that. So those are things that we are fighting for right now.
Let's sort of stay with that energy, Meghann. I imagine that there's been a lot of, meetings and conversations, a ton of back and forth, and everything in place, and fans and how they can, with this fund, and how they can perhaps donate directly to players and support the PA, because that's something that has always kind of come into play, right? Especially with everything that has gone on in 2021. That's sort of something that has always been the question that has always sort of been hanging towards the end of everything that we've been doing on Attacking Third when it comes to highlighting the Players Association and everything that's been going on. There's always that very simple question where it's like, how can I help? What can I do to show support for the players? And you've already mentioned that heading over directly to the .net is the best, most direct way to actually do that. But in terms of how the actual fund works and how players can utilize that, do they apply for the funds? Is there a board of trustee that comes into play that oversees the type of case-by-case scenarios? How does that work once the player comes forward with their emergency?
I'm a lawyer and a nerd, so I love a process question, like a really good process question. So the supporttheteplayers.net is a 501c3 status pending with the IRS. So once that status is approved, it's a charitable contribution that's tax deductible. And it is independently administered by 4 trustees. The PA has appointed these 4 trustees to manage the funds. So I don't make the decisions. These trustees do. And those 4 trustees, I think it's significant who they are. Tracy DeForge, who's the founder of the Players Impact, so has a lot of experience in launching startups for professional athletes. Donna Cohen, who's an attorney. So you need a lawyer who's going to, make sure you got the fiduciary liability insurance and following the trust documents and keeping things in order. And she's got a really impressive set of credentials in advocating for women in sports. Stacey Enos, who played in the first ever U.S. women's national team game in 1985 in the Copa Mundialito, and won the first 3 championships for University of North Carolina. So we're kind of bridging the generations there with Stacey. And then Kelsey Davis, who's a former WPS player, goalkeeper, and now chaplain who ministers to athletes in crisis. And so we really feel like those skill sets were what we're looking for to be able to meet the needs of players who might be in crisis. And so we're actively fundraising now. We need every dollar we can get. Supporttheplayers.net is where you can go to contribute. And then starting January 15th, players will be able to submit applications. Those applications will be administered through we have a kind of private system for players, on our website, a portal that they can access. And so the trustees will review those applications and turn them around quickly to get funds out, because it is by definition an emergency. One thing that's really critical to know, and former players are listening to this, a little known thing the PA did this year that we're really excited to launch, and Sid will, of course, as our business agent, be able to really beef this out and run with it. We've added former players to our membership categories. And so any player who signed a contract to play professional soccer in the United States at any time, so WSA, WPS, or NWSL, is eligible to join the Players Association. And when they become a member of the PA, they're also eligible. One of the many benefits they'll be able to access is the ability to apply for emergency financial assistance.
So, Sydney, as Meghann just said, this is now available for former players that come into it. What does that really mean? And what does that look like as a former player? Like, how are you guys spreading the word for these players, besides, of course, listening to Attacking Third? But what does that mean from your role as the business agent with the PA?
Yeah, again, as someone who's really excited about being able to find my new niche in the soccer world, I'm hopeful that we can go back and we can get the people that helped build these leagues and built soccer to where it is today. We can honor them in that sense and let them know that you've got a community, you've got a group that's here to support you. If it wasn't for you and the work that you've done and the lives that you've lived, we wouldn't even be in this position to do it. So I'm actually really excited about that element of this fund, because there's so many deserving players that if they need an extra hand here, we want them to know that we've got their back, because clearly they've had ours for, living and pioneering for us to be able to get to where we're at.
It's this super secret club that once you're in forever. It sounds fantastic. I mean, that's really what it should be as the Players Association. But this emergency trust fund is really just one part of the bigger puzzle and the bigger piece that the PA is looking to do overall with the NWSL and the players that are still competing. And this conversation is not over about the collective bargaining agreement that is happening right now. And before we dive really deep into this conversation, Meghann, as the lawyer, I'm going to ask you another process question here. Can you just kind of explain what a CBA is and who needs them?
Yeah, sure.
If our listeners are tuning in and they're like, what is the CBA they keep referring to? Break it down for them.
I know. Let me break it down, and you can stop me and we'll break it down even more. But so CBA stands for a collective bargaining agreement. And a CBA is basically a contract between an employer and the union that represents a group of employees. So us. That's kind of the brass tacks 101. But, it's important to note the first word in there is collective, right? So it's the group together, and it sets minimum standards of employment, terms and conditions of employment. This is why a CBA is vital to players for the 2022 season, because you look at 2021 and the work conditions, the conditions of employment in NWSL, the system's failed, period. I don't think the CBA is a magic bullet, but it's absolutely one of the mechanisms that can solve many of the systemic power imbalances and problems we saw in 2021. And so this contract has become even more important to players as we've lived through the 2021 season. The CBA is sort of, if you imagine, if you're like a casual fan and you're wondering like, okay, so it's a contract, but players sign contracts too and whatever, think of it as like the framework. It kind of builds the house and the foundation. But then within that, There's going to be room for, negotiation between a player and a club to establish things like salary or other conditions or perks or bonuses or whatnot. But the CBA kind of sets the whole framework for the whole system. And, frankly, I think it's in our mutual best interest, NWSL and the players, to have this as a roadmap for what the future of NWSL will look like moving forward.
So Sydney, as a former player and from a player's perspective, why is it important for players to have a CBA?
Yeah, I think it sets the new standard for where women's soccer can go. And now we have a baseline, and give players the confidence to know that, this can grow, and this is the baseline, but this is absolutely what you're going to get, and you won't get anything below it. And so, I think we're very much at an important point in the history of women's soccer, especially here in the U.S. And so by having this CBA, we're just solidifying, the direction that we're going to be able to go and where we want to get to. So I think, and my hope is that it just provides players with the confidence that, they can feel good in their employment. They can feel good showing up to work, feeling like they have the resources that they need to be able to do their job to the best of their ability and not worry about, outside factors. So again, I think, the point being here that it's just setting a standard that players can feel good about.
Something that I've been thinking about too is that in these ongoing negotiations for a collective bargaining agreement, this has been ongoing for 2021. This is not something that sort of came spur of the moment post the regular season, right? The players union has been trying to advocate for themselves, right? And then in the midst of all of the things that occurred over the course of the regular season, there was this sort of adjacent fight, right, too, where we heard a lot about safe environments and protecting the players. And that became another fight that was happening alongside the CBA negotiation. So in terms of all of that's always going to continue to be important moving forward for the players in this league. But in terms of just the collective bargaining agreement for you, Meghann, because again, this is a lawyer question. In your perspective, what's the temperature? Where did the conversation stand at this point, perhaps with the players union, the league, and this CBA?
I mean, to use an analogy, we're in stoppage time. So, we did the math. We've had 34 bargaining sessions since March. We have spent over 250 hours literally at the bargaining table. When I say 250 hours, that is only at the bargaining table. That does not include all the meetings that players, our bargaining committee has had to prepare, to debrief, to draft documents, to conduct surveys, get player input. Let's put aside the No More Silence and No More Side Hustles campaigns. I'm not even including that. I'm talking 250 hours at the table. So we do feel like we're in stoppage time here. We'd hope to have a contract by the end of the year. I don't think that's going to happen. I think there are some issues that we're not quite there yet on, but I certainly hope that immediately in the new year we might be able to get there.
You're kind of alluding to this, Meghann, but for players that maybe are listening to this or fans that want to support the CBA, as you look ahead to the end of the year, and really it's so crazy to say 2022 just around the corner, the goal for the Players Association and the CBA, what kind of timeline can players expect?
We're engaged in that discussion now. Those preparations are happening now, and I feel comfortable saying that we're not going to relive the 2021 season.
I think that's a good point, and maybe a hopeful point for people to sort of hang their hat on. For you, Sydney, when you have sort of are going to maybe take a different role now, right? Sort of being a player and sort of being on the receiving end of the information, right? Absorbing all that stuff once upon a time as a former player and sort of hearing about, whether it's via player reps or otherwise through conversations about what these ongoing negotiations are. What has that shift sort of been like for you now as you're going to be taking on a role as a business agent within the PA? How are you shifting your perspective at all, or is it just, are those two things adjacent, sort of connected and go online, being the former player and then now the business agent, having all of those things connected together when you're receiving this information about the ongoing CBA negotiations?
Yeah, I think Meg and I discussed this quite a bit in speaking about the role and why it was important that a player takes on this role is to have that player perspective in these, more intimate conversations. And so I can say that that's really where I want to pride myself on going in these conversations is I'm here for the players, and that has to and will be the focus for this. So yeah, I mean, the day-to-day is going to look different for me. Some things will obviously have to transition, but first and foremost, I'm here for the players. And I hope that gives them confidence as well to have someone in this role that, not only has been in this league, but also lived a 2021. And I think that's motivation in itself to get in there and get this done for these players, because we can't have that again.
Well, Sydney, you are changing roles a little bit, but you're still very much involved. And because we have you and your boss on here, Meghann, right now, I hope your wardrobe can maybe stay as comfy and as casual as it was as a player. I don't know. I'm just trying to fight for you here, Sydney.
I hope so. I'm not gonna lie. It kind of gives me a reason now to maybe try some new wardrobe changes. I don't know. But yes, please don't put any restrictions on that or anything like that.
Well, for the record, the players are my boss. So
there you go. I love that relationship. So a chance to kind of dive deeper into your closet, maybe go on a shopping spree. Why not? If you're looking for inspiration, Gotham, their runway, camera crew for before the games, pretty great inspiration for the fashion.
We should do a pregame fits. What does that look like?
Hey, I think that would be a hit.
I'm here for it.
I think that would be a massive success, right? It's all about that engagement on the socials. For the two of you, early thank yous, right, for joining us today. But before we close out for each of you, is there anything else that either of you would like fans of the league or the Attacking Third audience to know about the Players Association specifically, or anything about the current initiatives with the emergency fund or CBA negotiations?
Sid, I'll let you go first.
I'll go first. No, I mean, first off, give a huge shout out to the fans and for sticking with us all the way through 21. And we know they're going to be there for us, for years to come. So, just to continue to follow us and, share our messages, come out to games once that season gets underway. But, just continue to share our message and amplify it. Support the fund. Keep tweeting no more side hustles, protect the players. That's very near and dear to us. So just the more support and amplification that we can get would be a really big help.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I couldn't say it better. I mean, huge thank you to the fans and supporters. It really makes all the difference when you go through a season like we just did, to know that people have our backs. The AFL-CIO, our brothers and sisters in the labor movement, our brother and sister PAs. Like, we've just really felt the solidarity this year. And the message that I would send to fans is, as we near the end of the year, yes, we're grateful, but we're also doubling down. Literally, we're bringing Sid on board and doubling in size and quadrupling in might. So we're ready to go in 2022.
It definitely feels, the energy feels much different towards the end of this year than perhaps it did in those early negotiations and even mid-season, perhaps. And it's always a joy to have you on the show, Meghann Burke. Sydney, thank you so much for being here with us today. And we look forward to continuing the coverage of the ongoing CBA negotiations and coverage of the Players Union and everything that you all have in the works down the pipeline. I want to thank all of our listeners for joining us as always. Meghann and Sydney, again, thank you once again. Follow us on Twitter, everyone, at Attacking Third. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and anywhere you listen to your podcast shows. If you leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts with a question, Lisa and I will answer as part of our mailbag segment. And we're also available as video, so please subscribe to us on YouTube. Visit youtube.com/Attacking Third. And we'll be back Wednesday with lots more off-season action for you all. For Sandra Herrera, Lisa Roman, Sydney Miramontez, and Meghann Burke, this was Attacking Third.